What's up guys, Joe Hamilton here. I thought it could be cool to do a run through of the production of a song I wrote for my personal music project LOSTT. The song's called Heaven's Burning. You can watch it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music and stuff. Before we get started, I just want to say that I'm actually offering this as a service now. So after the video, if you like what I did, you can contact me here or on Instagram, Joe_GGD, and I can come in and add production to your songs. So if you want synth layers added, orchestration, strings, percussion, or just even sort of stuff like post-production-y bits like risers, bass booms, stuff to kind of take your track to the next level, make sure to get in contact and we can talk about what to do to really make your songs kick ass. But anyway, let's get into it. This is the demo session you can see here. So we haven't got my vocals in this session, but I really wanted to focus on the sort of production elements that I added in. So, you know, all of these layers here are strange, either orchestral or synth layers I added, which really kind of is really the whole character of this track. These guitar layers I've got, which, you know, are, you know, the band element, are really very, very simple layers. There's not really riffs, it's just chords and palm muted notes essentially. Where a lot of the melody and rhythmic complexity comes from is in all this stuff. So I thought it could be cool to kind of do a walkthrough all of that to show you what I did. But I'll go through section by section and showing you some different stuff. So we'll start with the intro, which, well, straight away we've got this sort of weird synthetic screeching noise. Cool, so we've already got a lot going on in the intro there. I'm going to start off with this speech track I have written here. This is actually an export of a text-to-speech generator thing I found online. If you just type in like text-to-speech generator. And this isn't like an AI thing. This is like a pretty old school text-to-speech generator you might have messed around with at school. You know, where you can like select Kathy, American, and it'll do like a weird synthetic American accent. So what I did was at this point I hadn't written the lyrics for the song, but I knew what I wanted it to be about. So I wrote some sort of random words, lyrics, expressions to do with the kind of theme of the whole piece and exported that down. And then what I did is I brought it in, I cut it up and stretched parts of it, I should say. And then I went in and you can see here using Soundtoy's Little Alter Boy, which is a plugin I use all the time for pitch shifting, formant shifting. I love how the drive sounds on this. Sometimes I use it just for that. And I've got it on this robot setting, which sounds very artificial. And you can see how I manipulated the pitch. And I've got the link set here, so the formant and pitch move together. And without that,
I know
obviously very, very, very different. And I did this disgusting EQ to really boost up those highs because otherwise it sounded... That's engaged. And I just thought that was a really cool intro. Already kind of unique. And then what I did then was essentially I screamed into a microphone and then cut that up to create this track I called Hate Speech because it sounds horrid. And this is a sort of weird production trick I like to do sometimes where I'll just loop a very short section to create that kind of glitchy sound. You can see each of these are looped and it just creates it sound like it's like a tape stuck on repeat. And then further onwards, what I did was I then took this speech, I took the original bounce of that and put it into, no, sorry, it wasn't the original bounce. It was a bounce I'd done after stretching and pitching it. And then I put that into Logic's Q sampler. I'll just turn these off for now. And when you load it in, it loads it up on Classic. So that's what it sounds like. But if you put slice in, what it does is it puts a slice on every transient. And you can see down here, it applies it to different notes. It's really cool. But then what I did was I wanted to just create like a random glitchy thing. So I basically found all the sounds that I liked and whacked them all in and then put an arpeggiator on that was just going to randomly cycle through these notes. And I put it to 16th notes. You can see all the sounds it's selecting as it plays through the arpeggiator here. So it's a way of kind of randomly generating an interesting texture and then add it all together. To create some further movement, I used Xfer's LFO tool, which I use loads, to create that kind of sidechain compression sound. Just with it on and without. So it's creating kind of like a ghost sidechain effect. And I don't know if I used this here, so I'm going to ignore that for now. And then starting at this arpeggiated speech, we've got this bass sweep come in. Very simple idea, just like a saw bass. And then I used this filter plugin by Kilohertz just to do a high pass sweep going downwards. Really cool bass sound there. I'm using Serum for that. Just this kind of random bass sound I came up with. Very simple, detuned, kind of gnarly bass sound. And then I've got this Omnisphere patch here, which I named GoldenEye. But it's this Shrieker sample. I called it GoldenEye because it reminded me of one of these synth sounds on the James Bond GoldenEye N64 game. It's just a one-shot sample, which I thought sounded really cool. And there it's doing a, that's really annoying. It's doing a 6/4 polyrhythm between, well, the track's in 6/4, and then we've got the GoldenEye layer there doing a 4/6 polyrhythm. And then we've got this kick that comes in with that. And I've got another EQ sweep here, which I automated to be slightly more chaotic. You can see here, I just did it using the modulation on my keyboard to record it in organically. Really cool little like rhythmic effect. And then that runs into, after that we've got this phase distortion here from Kilohertz again. And then this limiter just to completely kill. Because with the EQ sweeping, you get a big volume difference. So I wanted to just completely quell that with a limiter. So I used the Waves limiter, which is sort of the most colorless limiter you can get because I wanted it to be pretty stale. And then this is when the drums come in. I've got this big slapping massive clap impact here sample, which has just got a delay on, with this drone which loves to go and go and go, probably because I've got loads of saturation on with Devil Lock. That's without the Devil Lock, so a massive difference. pretty gross. And you can hear I've got some pitch automation in there just to change it as it comes out of it, just to give a sense of dread, really. Gain pulling back loads because of all that saturation from Devil Lock, and then some very basic EQ just to tame the high end a bit. But that altogether counts as the intro. And then we've got that massive clap impact I was telling you about, with the repeater on, just to help elongate the sound a bit and give a bit of rhythmic slap in that Then we're into the first verse, which is all synth-based with drums. I'm using Get Good Drums, One Kit Wonder Architects, which is pre-mixed and just sounds so good. So I've got, again, like a kind of saw-based sound out of Serum, I should say. It's the same patch I used for the bass sweep sound, but I just did it on a separate track, so I didn't need to worry about automating it and stuff. Into LFO Tool, again, from Xfer, which gives that sidechain effect. And then Waves R-Bass on it, just to give it some extra low end. Arena Kit 3, let's see what this is. I can't quite remember. So a nice EDM-y kick. Nothing going on this. Just a kick on every quarter note. And then we've got these stabs, which are cool. I think this layer was really influenced by Bring Me the Horizons. I'm pretty sure it was on this album. Yeah, Nihilist Blues. Really inspired by that for this layer. And what I did was, it's just an Omnisphere patch, probably. Yeah, so the preset's called Epic Proportions. And I played in live the velocity changes because I wanted to sort of give a sense of it jumping in and out at you. And you can see I've also got the LFO tool again and a limiter. I really love that effect. It's kind of like something's trying to jump out at you, but it's like stuck behind a bar, but it's just rattling the cage. That's kind of what I imagined when I did it. And then under that, I've got this guitar stab layer, which is this picked bass sound from Diva by Yuhi. And I've got a lot of bits and bobs going on here. So let's check that out. Saturn, just to give it some saturation. Let's turn it off. Loop this section. So that's the original preset. With Saturn on. Immediately turns it into something completely different. And that's where the guitar stabs come in, because it kind of sounds like a synthesized guitar to me. LFO tool. To give that kind of EDM pump again. Limiter, just to cut the transients, don't want them. Bit of EQ, and then lastly, this effects rack. Echo Boy. To give some width, really short feedback, but it just gives some width to the sound, which was pretty central otherwise. So that combined with the stabs. And the two rhythms there are kind of playing off one another, aren't they? Because we've got the offbeat stab accents with the velocities coming in sort of between the more regular sidechainy effect of the guitar stabs. And then we've got this choir. I am doing a sidechain compression to this. Now, the reason I used a compressor to do this sidechain compression instead of the LFO tool is because I wanted it to react to the different rhythms that this kick is doing. So it's reacting off the kick. You can see I've got the sidechain set to this arena kick. You can see here it's reacting to the different rhythm of the kick, because I wanted that to be part of the sound. Just going into a channel EQ to bring out some of that, and then a bit crusher too. I believe this will tame some of the high end. I mean, that's basically doing nothing. So as I said, this is like this was the demo project where I did all the sound design, not mixed, just the sound design, because I sent this track off for mixing by the amazing Abraham Fahima, who did an incredible job, and I probably made him sick with all the elements I put in. But what can you do? And we've got that going on in the background still. Very Rammstein, that choir sound, I think. I know they've used a bunch of Omnisphere stuff in Rammstein, so it might even be the same preset. It reminds me of something. And then going into the short bridge before the first chorus. Big shift in terms of timbre and feel. Classic me, big shift to something more beautiful before a drop. So we've got basically a polyrhythm pattern going on in this piano. So the top, we've got two layers. Let's try and break this down. So we've got this layer here. And in fact, let's focus on the other layer because we can mute this. So we've got this. And then if we unmute that and mute the t'other, you've got this second layer under it. Which changes rhythm there. But if you whack it all together, you get this really cool polyrhythm piano layer, which is something I like to mess around with. I think it's really effective. So it's a 3/2 polyrhythm, basically. A very classic polyrhythm, but when applied to different instruments can sound really, really sick. And then we've got this drone. Oh, by the way, this piano, I believe, is the Woodchester piano. Oh, I'm wrong. It's the Imperfect Samples Steinway Walnut Grand. Really beautiful. And I pulled the velocity way down to give a bit of a softer sound to the attack. And then we've got this drone, which is Omnisphere again. Basically, when people ask me about what synths I use, it's either going to be Xver's Serum, Omnisphere, or Yuhi's Diva. Recently, I've also been using a lot of Cradle stuff. That stuff is really cool and working into my sort of workflow. Those selection of synths are basically all I ever use for synth sounds, because it's all you ever need. But we've just got this really gnarly drone sound, which is the same drone from the beginning. But I pitched it up to act as like a transition into the chorus. Now you have to excuse the crappy mix. When I'm writing songs like this and they're just in the demo, I tend to try and mix it as little as possible without it sounding completely terrible, because I'm really focusing on the flow and trying to stay in that sort of songwriting mode. If I start to dial in the mix too much, I oftentimes lose the sort of creative flow, and I don't want to do that. So I just accept that things sound a bit more rough and ready and focus on the composition. Now for this choir thing, I'm using the Audio Imperia Nucleus Lite, and a lot of people always asking me about what choir library I use for this staccato sort of phrases, and it's always this. It's great, it's cheap, and it's light on your CPU too. I whacked that into a limiter just to quell transients and just make it sit without having to worry about it too much, and then put that into a reverb. Neo church makes sense because it's a choir, so I want it in a church. And this layer actually spawned the melody line for the chorus. I later on, the melody line for the vocal chorus, the vocals in the chorus, I should say, which I later went on to write. But I thought it sounded really cool. A nice big epic shift and very simple as a chorus. And the guitars there are following that melody. With a whole bunch of delay on. And then something cool I did on the bass here to kind of say, oh, we're going back to synthy land, to robot glitchy land, is I did what I did at the beginning with some of that vocal stuff, and I took a single note from the bass and looped it. And then just change the note of that, and it gives a really cool sound. This is something I do sometimes to kind of change. It's just a rhythmic shift, not a rhythmic, sorry, a textural shift that I think can really act to kind of freshen things up a bit. It's pretty subtle, but I think in context it works really well. And then, you know, got these things going on again. Pretty brutal sound mixed over the speech arpeggios. And then we're just bringing in the stuff from that first verse again, but this time with some heavy guitars and bass. You can see what I was going on about where I'm saying it's really focused on these synth layers, because without it, like, it still sounds cool, but it sounds pretty empty. Bringing all this cool stuff back in. Bring all this cool stuff back in. My brain is not functioning. The bass here, really, because I've got the bass guitar in, I probably should have cut a lot of the lows out just because I wanted that sort of high saw bass sound in the sort of extremities. And bring the golden eye synth back in. Just a nice reference to before. And then into this pre-chorus drop again. So a couple different things going on here. Again, we're doing that 3/4 polyrhythm on the piano. Please shut up. Thank you. I changed the notes here, shifted things around a bit to freshen the ear up a bit. You can hear I've got the notes going higher and then them shifting a bit more in the lower range. But I added some strings. Chamber strings by Spitfire. Really beautiful strings, very quick to dial in. Then this E choir thing. Just to add some sort of etherealness. And you can see there that those notes are following the choir stab notes from the chorus. I love sort of reusing parts in different parts of the song because I think it helps give the whole song its own identity as opposed to lots of different sections put together. I love to reference sections in sort of like, so, well, just like here, I'm reusing the choir stabs melody in this pre-chorus in a much quieter section. So you might not really pick it out with your ear, but it's subtly there to kind of make this whole track sound like one cohesive piece of art, I guess, without sounding too snobby. And then I brought that kick with the filter back in. Same thing, referencing the past beginning. It'll make your ear say, oh, I recognize this, and engage it, make you feel like you're already familiar with the song, even on its first listen through. And even if it's not like, oh, that's the kick from the beginning, you'll be like, oh, this sounds familiar already, which I think is a good little trick to try and achieve. And then we've just got the chorus again, but with added E-choir and strings, basically. Really beautiful string arrangement, I think, if I say so myself. I could listen to that all day. Right, now, so then we go into this kind of EDM drop, which I didn't see coming. So let's just break that down. We've got this, well, let's start off with this. Again, looping a section of hate speech. Got this filter going on. Into a phaser to create some further texture, which I ramp up towards the end. We've got that drone again pitching up. But a new layer here is this dead mouse pluckers, as I called it, which is another diva patch. I believe I made this one. Kind of a dead mousey plucky sound using the arpeggiator. Just holding that one note and then bringing in another note, which changes the texture of it. Again, going into Serum FX. This multi-band compressor thing is pretty brutal and I love it. Really crushes it and just makes the high end come out in a really aggressive way. Into Chroma Verb. Giving that kind of Euro synthy vibe into Elephotal. And then I added these drums, which is the Architects library. And then these sort of taiko drums. I can't actually remember where I got this, but it's this Epic Toms patch. Just sick. I use it probably a bit too much, so I've tried to wean myself off it. But I think it sounds so epic here. And into the drone, then we've got this reverse ramp. And then into a freaking EDM drop. 4 on the floor kick. Oh, this bark cello is a cool thing. So let's just focus on this, which is just a very simple bass patch, again with the ARP. just to basically create repeated 16th notes so I don't have to program them in into LFO to create that sidechaining effect. You can hear that it's clicking a bit at the beginning, so I should have really gone in and smoothed this out. Useful for preventing clicks, as it says. Right, now onto this bark cello. This was something I was messing around with ages ago and then never found a use for it until this. So it's using this bark cello staccato patch. If I get rid of everything, it sounds like this. So yeah, just like a scrape on a cello, basically. Into the arpeggiator. And then just by chance, the amount of round robins it's got is 4, seemingly. And it puts that on the upbeat. So it creates this like instant sort of dance texture. So it's a really cool like rhythmic texture. Into LFO tool again. Cutting out some of the lows. And then into effect rack, which is probably... What are we using here? Come on. Oh, a whole bunch of stuff. So, decapitator for some saturation. Let's just loop this so we don't lose it. Which brings out that like raspiness. Into pan man to make it basically go left to right. Phase mistress for some texture. Really cool texture that. I was really proud with that one. What have we got going on here? What does this do? I can't remember. I remember now. Tuvan Male 3 Drone 5. This guy. Super cool sound. Into serum effects, we've got some distortion. The compressor there is bypassed, so we're just running it through a stomp box, so like a guitar pedal, to really make it sound pretty gnarly. LFO tool again, doubling down on that EDM sort of drop soundy thing. We've got more of these claps going on. And then we've got this hi-hat layer, which is just through LFO tool and I believe pan man. So it's going left to right every 16th note. So it's going tick, 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 tick. Just a sort of higher layer in the frequency range. Pretty subtle, but without it, you can really hear something's lacking. And then this noise layer, which is something I like to do. You can get this. This is well, you can't not get this. This is the noise generator from Serum, using this Aircan 3 sound, and it's just creating kind of like a subtle white noisy thing, which just sort of adds to filling up the entire EQ spectrum in a really sort of full sounding way. You'll miss it if it's not there, kind of thing. And we've got this riser. This isn't really a riser, to be honest with you. But it's a very cool texture. Come back in again now. So it is a riser, kind of, but it's more of like a downer than a riser. EDM kick comes back in when it drops. Obviously. That's everything for there. And then when it kind of kicks in and this comes back in, we've got a hi-hat just doing 16th notes on with the LFO tool again. Mimicked by the hi-hat on this drum. pattern. And then we've got the taiko drums here again, acting as like a little pre-drop accent, but I think I put a bunch more reverb on it so it wasn't as in your face. And then I did something to these guitars, which I think is pretty cool, to kind of metalify the EDM drop, as it were. I just did 16th note palm mutes, but put it through the LFO tool. Creates this kind of chainsaw-y thing, but again, kind of metalifying the EDM drop, if you want to put it that way. Then this drone layer, which is the same drone patch as before, but just short notes. Running through this, which is Logic's own remix effects tool. And it's got this like stuttery gate thing. And I've got that going on 16th notes. You can change it, but I automated it to be on there. And I have got this brutal riser. Which is just this saw wave with some noise and a sub, but I put it through, I believe, archetype Nolly on this amp, which just makes it sound super distorted and gross in the best way possible. That's without it. With it. And that's just running through the LFO tool again. Into the big bridge, drop down, build up. Again, using that 3/4 polyrhythm. But elongating it out. Strings. Slowly building up the layer, the note layers. Some flutes. And an oboe. No, clarinet, sorry. Building up the string notes, epicness, drone. And then we've got that kick thing with the filter coming back in, referencing the beginning, returning your ear to something more familiar. We've got all the stuff coming together. We're home before the big end chorus. That was the whole idea behind it. Something I really love to do when I finish these pieces is just listen to the orchestration, because oftentimes, even without all the other layers in, it's really satisfying and beautiful to listen to. You know, and when writing these strings, I'm just really doing it by ear. I don't know what the chords are. I don't know theory when it comes to this kind of stuff. I know rhythmic theory because I'm a drummer, but it's a shortcoming of mine that I don't know the sort of melodic theory of stuff going on here. But we bring back in those choir stabs for the chorus, because that's the kind of thing that drives it forward and really gives it the melody. But then we added these R layers, which is just, I think, like the boys' choir. Yeah, boys' choirs are F for forte, which means loud. to increase the angelicness of that last chorus and bring them in as we half-time the drums to a more just like straightforward driving rhythm, which gives it a bit of like a slowdown, gives us some space to kind of bloom. So there we are, guys. That's my run through of my single Heaven's Burning. I'm really happy with how this track came out. Doing the vocals was a whole nother thing, which I hated doing just because I'm not a trained singer. I found it very hard. I found writing the melodies quite difficult. But I was really happy with how it turned out. One of the reasons I wanted to do this was to say that I'm actually offering this as a service now. If you want me to come in and add all these layers to your songs, whether it be synth layers, rhythmic layers, or orchestration layers, or even just stuff like risers, sweeps, bass drops, and stuff like that, contact me either here or through Instagram, joe_ggd, and we can talk about what you want, what you're after, and how I can help you really take your tracks to the next level. But if you've got any questions about today and about this video, about anything I've covered, drop them in the comments and I will endeavor to reply to you. And if you've got any further video ideas of me showing techniques or sort of behind the scenes stuff at any of my other projects, tell me what you would like to see and I will get to it. But thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a pretty long video, but I hope it gave you some ideas, some inspiration, and maybe some sort of production techniques for you to go and try in your own song productions. All right, guys, well, take it easy. Thank you for watching.